Hi, Faith. You definitely do not need an introduction.
Hi, Nancy. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to talk to you today.
Likewise, me too. I mean, it's kind of intimidating because you're just like this powerhouse woman. So for me, it's a privilege.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
I mean, congratulations because now we're going to be starting to watch season two. I mean, we you came in with season one with just 8 episodes, and now it's 13 episodes.
People watched season one. They did. We were number one in cable originals in our time slot, our first season. And so I reflect back and ask myself when we were choosing cases for this season, what resonated the most with viewers. And then I went to CrimeCon in Vegas and I got to meet so many viewers from the show and talk to them about it. And I think that people really relate because we've all had relationships, and not just romantic relationships, but we all crave human connection, the friendships, the sibling relationships, the parent-child relationship, all of those things. So we've all had them, so we can relate to them. In terms of the romantic relationships, a lot of us have gone through breakups. We've had to end relationships and go our separate ways. And how do we navigate that? Some people are really good at it, some people are really bad at it. But in our show, the question really comes up: why does someone have to die at the end of it? Why does it need to go to that level, that extreme? And so people were really interested. They wanted to know the why. In most of our cases, most of the perpetrators involved had no criminal histories. They had no history of violence, no history of crime. There weren't any big sweeping red flags or warning signs. So what really happened? And I think that's a part of the intrigue of the show.
Definitely. For me, it's addicting to see and leaving me in disbelief. Like you
Mm.
say, you wouldn't anticipate it, you wouldn't think, but that makes it so much more scary out there.
It is, but I can say this. You all you can do is I think in love and in relationships, you take a risk every time. And you hope for the best, and you just hope that you're choosing well and you're choosing right. I think that for the most part, in a lot of cases, people did. Look at the season premiere. I think we sent you the first episode for this season, Makiba Jenkins. Who would have thought? I mean, she is a young African American entrepreneur, homecoming queen, businesswoman, having tremendous success. She goes to college, and she meets someone at a church function. He's the son of a pastor. He checks off all of these boxes. But in the end, you have to watch because people change over time. What about her success started triggering in him not just this overly obsessive controlling behavior, but deep insecurities. And so then he started acting out on those insecurities. So, a part of the storytelling, a part of what we talk about is as relationships change and you go through change in life, you hope that people are changing for the better. You hope that they're growing on the path with you as you go through life. In some cases, that doesn't happen. And so, what do you do? And in this case, I've seen a lot of cases in my time at the prosecutor's office and in family court in New York. There was still an element of surprise for me in this case, not just because of the crime, because in all of these stories, it is going to be a whodunit and why, whether it's another lover, where someone's having an extramarital affair, whether it's a family member, whether it's jealousy, insecurity, there's always an element of whodunit. But in this case, it was the lengths that this person went through to cover up the crime that surprised me the most.
From the first season, which episode was the most shocking to you? The first season.
In season one,
Mhm.
um, wow, I think that um, we had a show during the first season where the crime happened right early on at the beginning of the pandemic when we were all going through lockdown, but we weren't exactly sure what was happening. And you had a man who used the coronavirus and just the people being so unsure about what it was to cover up the fact that he had killed his wife. So he had her phone and he would text and say, I can't talk because I'm sick. I have COVID. I'm in the hospital. I am on a ventilator. So that's why you're not able to reach me. So he was able to prolong the fact that he had killed his wife for weeks because of COVID and the isolation, because we weren't seeing each other during that time period. So that case really stood out to me a lot because it was the first case I heard of where someone had used COVID as a cover up for murder.
For me, it was the monster-in-law because you always think about the significant other. You don't really think outside in the family circle.
Yes, and we have a few cases like that this season where it's not the romantic relationship between two partners, that where someone meets their untimely demise at the hands of their lover, but we have outside relationships, and it's really interesting and intriguing because those cases strike me oftentimes harder because of the length of time that these people have known each other and had this love relationship. What you will see from the family and friend interviews, and I think this happened the first season too, but this season, even more so with the cases, it's incredible to watch and listen because they know all of the parties involved. They have relationships with the person who committed the crime and the victim. And so the pain that they experience is just so much more palpable because of the relationship and the connection they have to everyone, and the surprise that this happened at the hands of someone that they also knew and loved.
You are not only host, but you're also executive producer. So how does that make you more involved?
Finding the cases, deciding what cases we're going to um, put on the show, writing a lot more in terms of telling the story. And this is the first show that I'm also executive producing, and it's been a really good experience. I love hosting. I've hosted a few shows on television now, but I wanted to add my voice into the mix in terms of what's being created and put on TV. So I think that in terms of storytelling, there should be a diversity of voices in the mix in terms of what's being presented to viewers. And so I'm really happy to be taking a part in this role now in terms of the content that we're producing.
So how do you pick the story? What do you look for?
I think that for me and our team, I would say, I look for stories where there is an element of who did it. I think our name says a lot in terms of giving away what the show is about, but I still want that element of who did it, like who could have possibly done this, and there could be multiple people. Because I think that from just watching and from a viewer watching, I always find those cases to be really intriguing. I also, I want to, in terms of watching the first young woman that we have featured, she reminded me a lot of myself when I was her age. Um, Ambitious. And I don't know if I've told you this already about her. So if I'm repeating myself, just let me know. But she was a homecoming queen in her high school. She graduated at the top of her class. She was an entrepreneur and 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 just had a lot going for herself at a young age. But unlike me, she met her husband really early on in life. And wow, it was that was a tough one. I will tell you, because I've seen a lot of cases throughout my career. I've cried a few times reading these stories and reading these cases. I mean, I've just found just tears coming out of my eyes because I just think to myself, wow, this person should still be here.
Mm-hmm.
They have the rest of their lives ahead of them. And when I know a case resonates like that with me, I know that it's going to resonate like that with viewers. So I knew when I read that case that I wanted to tell the story. And I just, you hope that the family wants to be involved in telling their loved one's story as well, because we don't do any cases without the family's approval. Because I want to respect the fact that a family is going to be watching what we put out, and I want them to be okay with the story that we're sharing. So all of those things that I just mentioned come into play into how we choose the cases.
Has there been a situation where they reject and you pursue, or you just let it go when a family member
So
rejects?
I would say so we have a team in place. So I just want to be clear, we have a team in place that reaches out to the family members. I don't make the calls personally directly, but we've had people who say it's too painful and they don't want to share the story, and we respect that and we say okay, and we move on, because at the end of the day we all watch these shows and we're all riveted by the fact that these stories are happening, because it could be your next door neighbor, it could be someone that you know at your church, it could be someone from school. And so we all watch because we're intrigued by the fact that this is happening all around us in different communities. But at the end of the day, this is someone's real life, and there's the family connection to it. So I understand when some people see it as, this is a great way to tell about my loved one and the person who they were, to have a spotlight on their life, and they want to do it. But there are some people it's just too painful and they don't want to go through the process, and I completely understand that, and we completely respect it.
Mm-hmm. Now, you just shared that some of these stories really get to you. So how do you shake it off to balance life?
I don't think you do shake it off. I think that you have to, because if I were able to shake it off, I would almost become inhuman at some point. Um, and I think that's a part of the issue that we have now. We see so much that we almost become immune and numb to violence and crime. And I've been working in crime as a prosecutor for, in some capacity in the criminal justice system for over 15 years. And I will know when it's time for me to leave. I will know when it's time for me to move on if I feel nothing when I read these cases, if I feel nothing when I watch these cases. And that's not the case with me. I try to compartmentalize, but and I tell my husband this all the time. We see things different because I work in crime and I was a prosecutor. So I am always making decisions in my life, and because I'm thinking about what's safe, what's best, because of things I've seen. So a part of it becomes a part of who you are and how you move in life, in the decisions that you make. But at the same time, I'm never jaded. I'm never hard. I'm never immune to violence. And there are some things that I won't watch. There are some things that I don't look at because it's still too difficult for me.
And if it's okay to say, congratulations, you do have a newborn.
Thank
So
you. Thank you so much.
you're welcome. So how do you find a balance with success in your career, the series? You wrote a book.
Yes.
How do you do it all?
Well, my daughter is 4 months now, and I went back to work on set 11 weeks after she was born. And I thought, how am I going to feel, how she's going to feel with me being away from her now for the first time during the day. But I think it was much easier because I love my work and I love what I do. And I think that I produce and create a show where people can take something away from it and help them navigate in their relationships in their own lives. So again, it goes back to what I mentioned about me being an executive producer and adding my voice to the mix and creating something that I'm proud of. And that is what we do. We give families an opportunity to give a voice to their loved one. So when I think about all of those things and the important work that I do when I come home and when she's old enough to understand what mom does for a living, I think it'll be something that she'll be proud of.
Well, thank you so much for your time for talking about the second season. This first season was addicting itself.
Thank
So
you. I appreciate it.
I
So I have to
definitely,
ask you, what are those books? Those look like law books behind you. Are they?
it's my boss's
Okay.
I'm borrowing, so I don't know.
Okay, okay, awesome. I just had to ask because I'm like, those look exactly like the books that I have in my office. So I was
I'm
just
trying to
curious.
be in theme with you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you. Bye-bye.